one way to be mindful, one way to try and create flow is to start putting really good stuff into your subconscious that aligns your subconscious with your overall goals, whether they be trading or whatever. And
two traders, Darren and Walter, pull back the curtain on profitable trading systems, consistent money management, and profitable psychological triggers. Welcome to the Two Traders Podcast.
G'day, Darren. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Walter.
So, Darren, I've been thinking about this flow thing, and I've been talking to a few traders, and what's interesting is that some people are going to think this is really weird, and it's not, and like, what does that have to do with trading? But for other people, I think it's going to make a lot of sense. Now, there was someone in the forum that was talking about this idea of when the charts sing to you, and I was thinking about some of the traders I know who are actually really good traders, and they also spend a lot of time doing meditation, trying to be mindful, and this is a key part of who they are as a trader, and they believe it helps them quite a bit. And I've found that it helps me if I'm also feeling kind of really centered, and if I spend some time with hypnosis, in my regular hypnosis schedule that I like to keep, I find that it really helps. Now, one thing, though, is that some traders find that they don't know what to do. How do I trade with the flow? How do I want to get to the point where the charts sing to me and they tell me what's going on, and I can, read them and I understand what's going on and I feel confident in what I'm doing. But how do I do that? And what does trading with the flow mean? Is it something I can force, or does it just come naturally? So what I would say is this. This is my advice. If you want to get to a place where you feel like you're trading with the flow, you feel like everything is going well in terms of your trading, I think it's important to align your purpose, what you believe to be your purpose, with your trading goals. So if you feel like your purpose doesn't fit with trading, then there's going to be natural friction there, and it may be difficult for you to make it work. In other words, you may be holding yourself back without even knowing it. If you believe that, for example, our friend James, he has a trading team, and one of his traders is a priest who's sworn a life of poverty, right? But yet he makes millions of dollars as a trader. So what does he do with the money? Well, he gives it to charity. That's what he does. He's a trader. He doesn't take any money. He takes all that money and he gives it to his charities. So he's still aligned with his goals, which is to help the people that he's basically taken an oath of poverty, and he's going to do this for his church and for people who need it, right? So everything is in alignment for him, and it works for him. But some people may not be in that. They may feel out of sync with the charts. They may feel like every time they take a trade, it doesn't go well, then they want to get revenge on the charts. It's almost like the next trade I'm going to double down and definitely get my money back and that sort of thing. So my question, Darren, is I think an easy way to do this, my question for you is, how do you do this? But first of all, I think an easy way to do this is to meditate or use hypnosis or try and be mindful in things that you do. And that might be as simple as when you eat, you don't have to sit there and take chomp, chomp, swallow, Try and chew your food 35 times. And when you sit down, you don't have to sit down and go straight onto your phone, right? When you sit down, you can sit down and be quiet and just close your eyes. You don't have to sit down, check your phone out, plug in your iPod and listen to whatever, music or whatever. You can simply be a little bit more aware. And what's interesting is that it can help you, I think, with trading when you see yourself from another perspective. So, for example, let's say you're in a trade, it's not going well, and you know you're going to get stopped out. All right, fair enough. But let me ask you something. What if you were to see yourself, like let's say that you were someone on the other side of the room looking at you trading while you're in this losing trade? What would that look like? Because what that does is it enables you to kind of step out and look at it from a different perspective, and you don't feel the heat of the emotion when you see it from a different perspective. So there's a couple of tricks there for you, and I'll put some links in the show notes too for this episode for people that are interested in this stuff. I can give you some links, but I think that hypnosis, meditation, and mindfulness exercises are really good for traders who want to feel like they can get into the flow.
Yeah, pretty deep stuff, Walter. But I agree with a lot of it. Definitely. I mean, I've not really gone into the meditation side of things. I know I'd really like to, but I haven't really been able to get into that and make that work. But for me, definitely, when I re-examined my goals from trading and kind of readjusted them, that made it much easier for me to trade and deal with the ups and downs of trading. And I think, initially I was looking for the money from trading to solve all my problems. And only when I kind of reassessed what my problems were and kind of start to focus kind of less on the money and more about changing my lifestyle so I could remove those problems, then I definitely traded more consistently. And like you say, that kind of self-awareness thing is a really key element. And when you can do that, I think the sort of benefits come outside of trading as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where if you're in a situation where you feel like things just aren't working for you, and it doesn't really matter what it is it your trading, is it something else, there's a reason for that. And it could be as simple as, well, the reason why you don't get along with your brother is because you don't listen to him. You're always talking over him. And the reason why you don't get along with the charts in your trades is because you've got this idea in your head that the euro has to go down, right? And so you keep selling it short when you're not paying attention to what the chart is actually showing you, which is, wait a minute, it's actually in an uptrend here. So there are simple things like that, but also just going through life, we pick up a lot of crap along the way. And this comes in the form of teachers, parents, bosses, authority figures, bullies at school. We get all this stuff that comes up, hurtful things that people say, loved ones or whatever. We pick up these little chinks in our armor along the way, and those can drastically affect us even if we're not aware of them. And this is pretty clear. I think there was a book about this. Do you know the band Guns N' Roses, Darren?
I do, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember the one, Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2?
No, I wasn't a fan, so I'd probably know it if I heard it.
Right. Anyway, the most famous one from the 90s, like the early 90s, was Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2. And they had the classic album covers. I'll put them in the show notes down here for those that aren't Guns N' Roses fans. And no, I wasn't really that big of a fan, but it was like the biggest band at one point, right? This is before Nirvana. Yeah, anyway, so in the US anyway, they were like, whoa. So what's interesting is that Use Your Illusion, I think, was a reference to a book. Now, I didn't understand this at the time, but there's actually a book called The User Illusion, okay? Now, User Illusion is a book by this guy, Tor Nordtrander, okay? And I'm totally slaughtering his name, and I'll put the link down in the show notes. But basically what he's saying is that our conscious mind can process 20 bits of information per second. That's it. That's all we can take in, okay? Which, okay, that might be acceptable to people or whatever. But what's interesting is that we're actually perceiving about 12 millions of bits of information, okay, at any given second. 10 million from what we see, 1 million from what we touch, and the rest is scattered throughout our other senses. So basically, of the 12 million pieces of information, bits of information that we get every second, we're only really consciously aware of 20. Now what that means is somewhere, and obviously the theory of the subconscious mind is that we have all of this stuff that is affecting us. And in fact, we can see this when they do neuroscience experiments with functional MRIs. The subject is there, they've got all this stuff, they're all hooked up, and they say, okay, make a choice. Is it A or is it B? And the person that's operating the MRI can tell what the subject is going to choose, A or B, which choice they're going to make, up to 6 seconds before they actually say it. Why? Because it's all being done in the subconscious. So it's in a different part of their brain that they're not aware of. They're not aware of the choice they're going to make, and then they make it, right? And so all the reason why I bring up the user illusion and Guns N' Roses and the bits of information and all that is that we have a whole huge giant pile of stuff that we've collected that's in our subconscious, and that affects our behaviors. It affects what we do. And so we have a choice. We can either just allow that to determine a lot of what we do, right? And determine a lot of the decisions we make in life, not really knowing what's in there. Or we can try and stuff a bunch of good stuff into that subconscious in the hopes that we can align our subconscious with our conscious goals, whether they be trading goals or relationship goals or, you know, whatever you want, health, whatever it is that you're after. So my belief, as a person who went through and got a PhD in psychology and all that, you know, my mentor would probably be she would probably be shocked that I'm saying this, because they don't necessarily teach you in the academic institutions the importance of the subconscious brain. It's not as it's known, but it's not really one of those things. Like, with rare exceptions, most universities, they're more interested in the conscious stuff. And yet it turns out that so much of what we do is determined by the subconscious. And so I guess what I'm saying is, one way to be mindful, one way to try and create flow, is to start putting really good stuff into your subconscious that aligns your subconscious with your overall goals, whether they be trading or whatever. And so you can do that with hypnosis. You can do that with a journal, writing down affirmations. You can do that with you can go to a hypnotist. You can also do that with subliminals. You can do that with, there's lots of different ways that you can do this. You can do it by talking to yourself. But probably the simplest way is to simply go to sleep and turn on a CD or an MP3 download that has subconscious messages in that, and it just sounds like the ocean. That's probably the easiest way for everyone to do that. And I can give you a link down at the bottom there if you guys want to check it out. Look, I'm not saying that it's for everyone. I'm just saying if this is something that resonates with you, that would be something to check out.
Can you can somebody perhaps look at, you know, journaling the mistakes, the flaws, the chinks they've got, and approach it from that side? So rather than kind of trying to stuff good stuff in there, addressing the bad stuff as a way of kind of turning that into good stuff. So, you know, say perhaps kind of suffer from being too greedy, or you know, getting too upset when things go badly. Can you kind of highlight those elements that are particularly prevalent in your personality and deal with it that way?
Well, that's an interesting point, because here's the thing. All right, so the whole point, like if you were to go to a Freudian psychologist, the whole point of that is to essentially get you to a point where you realize what you're doing, right? And then you change. Okay, that's basically the whole Freudian model of sitting down on the couch and having the guy with the pipe talk to you, and you're sort of sitting down telling him all that stuff. That whole setup is based on this idea. So in essence, what you're saying is kind of the same thing, where what you're doing is you're writing down what's going on in your feelings and how you reacted to that, and all that's in your journal. And eventually you hit that aha point through the process, and you go, oh, I realize what I'm doing here, right? This is what's going on here. I'm always so greedy, and I get so greedy on these trades that they end up, I could have had a good profit, but instead, because I was so greedy, I end up getting to a point where, bummer, you know, I end up not making as much as I could have, because I have to finally get out at break even or at a very small profit. And if I had just taken that profit and was there, I would have been much better off. So that's one thing that people can come to that point. But here's the difference. If you do journaling or whatever, and you get to the point you realize you have that aha moment, that's great. But the argument is that in your subconscious is the true reason why you're greedy in the first place. Okay? So something, like, let's say something happened a long time ago, and like, let's say when you were a kid, so your auntie put a bunch of money down on the table, and all the kids, all the cousins, you're all around the table, and she said, grab some money and we'll go and everyone can go and buy an ice cream for themselves or whatever, right? And so everyone goes in there and grabs the money, and because you missed out and you didn't get any money, the money was all gone by the time you put your hand in there, you missed out and you didn't get an ice cream, okay? Something like that happens. And then you go throughout life feeling like, you know, you never get your share. It's never fair. So you keep trying to get more, right? I mean, and that translates into trading and whatever. So the point is, I guess my point is, whether you go through journaling and figure this out, or whether you go through your subconscious and try and erase that and put some different thought, some different principle in there, I suppose you could say it doesn't matter, but what some people would say is that, look, it's still in your subconscious. That memory about missing out on the money when you were a little kid is still in there. So even though if you realize it consciously, you still feel that inadequacy in your subconscious. So what you have to do is kind of let go of that and override it with some other thoughts and stuff other thoughts in your subconscious. So in other words, it's kind of just window dressing. You might keep falling back on the same mistakes if you're using something like a conscious tool like journaling. So that's what like the hardcore, subconscious people would say.
Do you need to be aware of the root cause and how it manifests itself before you put the good stuff in for it to work? Or can you just put the good stuff in and it will kind of deal with all of the bad stuff?
That's a great question, and this is something that I've thought a lot about. And if you look at what's going on here, some people will tell you you'll never know what's in your subconscious. So in other words, you can't know exactly what's in there. Let's say you're driving along the way, you're driving down the street, and you come to a stoplight, so you've got to stop at the signal. So you stop because it's red, and you're waiting, okay, and then the light turns green, but right before the light turns green, you see in the intersection, you hear this really loud noise, and you look off to the left, and you see this giant fire engine going across the intersection with the lights on, and it's racing across, and it's going across the intersection as your light turns green. Now, you're not going to pay attention to the signal light anymore, are you? You're going to pay attention to that fire engine, and you're going to let that fire engine clear the intersection before you go because you're a good driver. So you're no longer paying attention to that. Well, that's the same thing with your subconscious. So your subconscious might have this green light in it telling you to do this thing because it's always been there. But if you can put something in there that's louder and more important and takes precedence because you're putting it in there basically every day, right? That's like a loud fire engine, and you're now you're going to pay attention to that, right? And one of the things that's so interesting about this is one of the guys who's done a lot of work in this, his name's Eldon Taylor. What he's found is that one critical piece of all of his subliminal tracks is this, what he calls the forgiveness set, where you're basically forgiving yourself for all the things that you've done wrong, and it's okay, let it go. He's found that this is a really critical piece to this, and so he includes it in all of his stuff. And so I found that interesting because it's basically kind of almost like letting go of all the crap that's in your subconscious. It's okay, doesn't matter, leave it alone, it's gone, it's done with, it's all right, you're forgiven, blah blah blah. And then you go into the positive affirmations that are in the CD, that sort of thing. So I guess to answer your question, I would argue that it doesn't really matter that you know what's in there. You probably won't ever know all that's in there, and it's more important to kind of just stuff the good stuff in there.
Right.
Yeah.
And these subliminal tracks, are they music or are they kind of spoken word, or what are we listening to?
Yeah, good point. So there's different theories about how they work. Like, I'm partial to Eldon Taylor because he actually does research on his stuff, and he's shown like that when they use their tracks for prisoners, like they use them in prisons, the prisoners had lower rates of recidivism, were more well behaved in the prison, didn't start as many fights and murder each other and stuff like that. All these things were positive, and he has many decades worth of research behind his stuff. But basically what he has is essentially two basic options. One is music, and the affirmations are in there, and you can kind of hear almost like little whispering or whatever. It's not, you might hear a little, like you might hear kind of something going on there. And what he does is he has on one side, like on the left speaker, let's say, or the left headphone or whatever, it's being read forward, and then the affirmations are being read backward or in reverse on the other side. I'm not sure whether it's left or right or whatever, but the point is he's giving you both backwards and forward speech, which is kind of interesting. There's a whole research area to that where you hear people talking about how you can figure out what someone is really saying when you reverse their speech. but that's a whole different story. That like for example, like you get these reversals of politicians or whatever, where they're saying like, I'm going to do everything I can for this country, and then they reverse it like, screw this bloody country, stuff like that. Like it's I love money, or whatever, You get all these really weird reversals on these tracks, which I find interesting too, but that's probably beyond this podcast. But yeah, so so what happens is you can choose ocean, where it's just ocean and it has the tracks over that, or you can choose music. And essentially those are his major choices. He's got other products too, like visual ones and things like that, and more direct. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And what's cool is like you can put them all on an MP3 player. Let's say you want to knock out. Let's say Darren, you want to like, you don't want to eat sugar anymore, and you want to collect a lot of you don't want to do really well in your trading over the next month. You could just put those two on rotation all night, right? And it just sounds like the ocean. Like it just sounds like the ocean, but it's just rotating those two tracks all night long or whatever. That's what I do. But yeah, so it's not, or you can do it while you're back testing. You can listen to them while you're back testing. And there's a lot of people that have done these in the forum. And one guy was saying how he was doing it for his trading, but his wife was also obviously in bed with him at night, and he said it was amazing. He said because her business went through the roof. I said, well, how did your trading go? He said, oh, no, my trading's going well too, but my wife, oh my God, her business has gone through the roof. It's like the side effect was that the wife was getting the messages too, and she's like winning all these awards and everything. And he said it's so funny. And of course, you could say, well, it's just a luck or whatever. It's a spurious correlation, or it doesn't really have anything to do with it. But he's convinced otherwise. Yeah.
Well, I'm instantly skeptical, but that is probably a reason for me to sort of look into it rather than discount it. Do you kind of like have a session of it and then you're sorted, or is it like an ongoing thing that you kind of build into your sort of daily routine?
Yeah, well, typically what I do is I have a time of day where I like to do my hypnosis, and then at night I just play the subliminals, or if I'm back testing, I'll play the subliminals too. So, because I like well, it was pretty funny because I bought all these CDs. I asked my wife, I said, well, which one do you like? Do you like the music, or do you like the, because she's going to have to listen to it too at night, right? Or do you like the ocean? And she's like, oh no, I like the music. The music's beautiful, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, really? You sure you want the music? Yeah. Okay. So we get all the music ones. And of course, the first week, it's like, nah.
Yeah.
Nah. This is not going to work. I can't sleep with this music on all night, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right. So then we went and ordered all the ocean ones, but now actually they have downloads. So they had it where you had to actually order the physical CD and convert it over to MP3 without actually losing the messages, which is a tricky thing to do in itself. But now you can actually download the MP3 right off, so you can purchase it and download it straight away. But I thought that was pretty funny. And it, like the ocean, like everyone can pretty much agree the ocean's like, that's an easy thing to listen to in the background, right? It's pretty simple. Yeah, it's usually agreeable for most people. But the music's interesting. Like it's not the same, it's kind of, it varies.
Right.
So I guess in some ways that's good, but in other ways, if you're trying to sleep, it's not so good.
Do you have to do it in your sleep? Is that kind of part of the process?
No. I just no, not at all, not at all. You can do it whenever. You can have it on at any time, but you don't have to pay attention to it. Is the thing, right? It's not important for you to pay attention to it. So, for example, when I do hypnosis, I'll use earbuds. So I'll plug in earphones into my ears, and I'll lie down and I'll do the hypnosis that way. But if I'm doing the subliminals, I'll just have that on speakers, and they'll just be running. So I think it's a little bit more important for you to focus on the voice during hypnosis, whereas when you're or in meditation where you're focusing on your breathing or whatever you would use, whereas with the subliminals, it's kind of just something that goes on in the background. And I know people feel like they just want to do it for 30 days and give up, but most people in the end realize that it's a good idea just to have it on. Like, it doesn't hurt, right? If you're sleeping at night, you hear the ocean, you get used to it. It doesn't have to be turned up or anything. It doesn't have to be super loud. Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing to me the number of people who have taken it and used it. They make it a habit. How it's changed them. How it's changed their lives. So I think it's something worth checking out for anyone that's listening and is interested. I'll give you the link in the show notes so you can check these out for yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a go because I'm massively skeptical, and I'd love to be surprised, you know. So I'm going to give it a go, and I'm going to report back to you to see how I got on with it.
Yeah, all right. I'm interested to hear how it goes. Definitely, yeah, yeah. It's not like I said. It's not one of those things that you have to pay attention to. Yeah. All right. So, is there anything else about flow? Have you ever seen a trader who was in flow, Darren, who was like in sync with the market, trading the market?
Yeah, definitely. When I started trading, the sort of first trader who kind of became a mentor to me, he just seemed to be. And I'm not saying that he used any of these techniques, but he just seemed to be kind of, you know, naturally at ease with the market. And yeah, he was. And funnily enough, he wasn't a trader that ever really talked about the money or, you know, what he was going to do when he was rich or, you know, any of those kind of cliche things that traders tend to talk about. It was just kind of. It was very sort of process driven, and he just kind of, like you say, he just seemed to kind of flow with his trading, and it was always very difficult to sort of get out of him, you know, exactly what he was seeing and what his thought process was, but it just seemed to naturally flow out of him.
Wow, yeah. It's interesting when you see that. All right, so Darren, we've got a promise from you. You're going to try the subliminals and you're going to report back to us in a future episode. That'll be interesting.
Yeah,
and
next episode, I'm going to give it a go this weekend.
Sweet. Oh, it's got to be like a while. It's not overnight. Yeah. It's not,
you see,
unfortunately, it's like a month or two. You know, you just keep it going. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll report back in the new year then.
Awesome.
I hope I stick at it because I'm notoriously lazy, so I'm going to have to really push myself to do this.
Well, this is the lazy man's thing because it's all you have to do is make sure it's on, right? As long as it's playing, right? And two speakers. You need two speakers.
Actually, there's a lot of time where I'm just kind of, you know, spending time on my own, and I could sort of perhaps work it into my sort of routine then. So yeah, I'll give it a go. I've said it on the recording now, so I can't really get out of it.
Yeah, we've got you. All right, Darren. Well, thanks a lot for your time, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, Walter. See you soon.